Bomb. Now, bomb is a actual historical fiction. In fact, it's just about the race to the deadliest weapon in entirety of human history. And pretty much, this is how it works out. It's 1938. And there's a German physicist who literally found out that he can split the uranium atom by just putting it under, like, next to a thing that shoots out neutrons. And then other physicists realized that can be used for a chain reaction and to create a bomb. And so the race is on. This simple discovery, which is about the tiniest particles, can become the deadliest of weapons with mass destruction. And it spans, and then the race goes on to create this deadly weapon. First, it spans through 3 countries, actually, to be honest, 3 nations, several military commandos, and a lot, by several I mean like a heck of a lot of physicists, and one of the most ruthless dictators I've ever lived. Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and Mussolini. Also, he didn't really participate in the nuclear race. And what's the prize? Military dominance. That's basically what this whole book is about. Now, I'm not gonna go into the plot of this book because it's just gonna take me through history, and I've already made a video about that. But then again, it still has some things about World War II. But the thing is, Russians here are seen to be like bad people because all they did during World War II was spying. Now the British law says giving national secrets that are not shown to allies. Now let's say you're a spy and you're in Britain and you're told by the Russians to be able to get information from the British to the Russians, and because the British are not giving them the information that they need and want. Now, the Russians are allies to the British. Of course. And so when the war's over and this spy was found out, he saw, I'm gonna be dead, aren't I? And he's like, and then his attorneys no, it's 14 years, dummy. And he's confused and then he explained, now, you gave British secrets to the Russians during World War II, right? Yes. Well, the Russians were basically our allies during the war, right? Yes. Meaning that if you didn't give it to an enemy, but you gave it to an ally, which meant there could have been nothing happening. Oh, so we give you 14 years instead of the death penalty. If you gave it to the Germans, then you'd have been dead. But you gave it to the Russians, so you're fine. However, in America, it's all like giving American secrets to anyone else that we've told not to notice equals death. They're all like, secrets are ours. We do not care. We do not care who the secrets are given to. If our secrets are given to someone else, then we will kill the person who did it, the spy. And then, of course, they realized it was the Russians that it was given to, and they really hate the Russians. So they went ahead and started bombing and started persecuting all Russians in the country and started having a Cold War with the USSR, which made everyone at school do drills of nuclear attacks and underground bunkers, which would absolutely do nothing, to be honest. Unless they somehow figured out how to build underground cities, the bunkers would have been useless and worthless. Because a nuclear strike is inevitable, and the only place safe is underground. But eventually, if you run out of food and you have to go back up, well, all the food up there is contaminated. So you're gonna have to dig your way out, and that's more dangerous. Now let's go ahead and start talking about the prize, military dominance. What would have happened if one of these 3 nations actually got military dominance? Well, if the Americans and if the British got military dominance, then the Americans have nothing to worry about because the British and Americans are chums. Well, not always. I mean, America is technically Britain's son, as well. They were once their colonies, and then they became independent. And then the next thing, but if the Russians won, then, well, that. It would have been terrible. First of all, they probably tried to spread communism everywhere. Of course, there'll be rebels there, but they'd be quickly shut down. And until Khrushchev arrived, it would probably just be everything in the world will be the way Adolf Hitler wanted to, just communist, not fascist. But what if the Germans won? Well, then everything would be Heil Hitler, and all the Jews that were persecuted. Also, not completely, of course, because they'll probably have resistance movements. So then the world dominance would start happening. Germany would probably take over America, and then start nuking the Russians while the Russians are trying to make the nuke. Let Japan take all of Southeast Asia, then attack Japan. And that's probably what would have happened. Then the world would all be Nazis. Or there's an alternative way. The Germans got the nuke, but they can't figure out where to blow it up. The Russians or the Americans. If they nuke the Russians would definitely surrender, and all that land would be Nazis. If it was the Americans, I'm not really sure what would happen, because it's like 2 seas are surrounding the American continent, and it's so divided away from Europe. And if the Russians, if the Germans nuked the Americas, that'll probably have almost no effect at all, because they're very, very diligent, the Americans. So are the Russians. The Russians, well, I'm pretty sure the Germans would try to nuke them as much as possible. And the Germans will probably just try to nuke everything, nuke everyone who doesn't go their way. Nazis, that is. That's pretty much all I have to say for now. And then we're gonna have to talk about the big boys. Truman, Churchill, and Stalin. Now, Truman is the American, and he's more of the most diligent man, I guess, other than Churchill, I'm pretty sure guessing. Truman is like, yeah, the Russians are never getting the bomb. You know when they're getting the bomb? And Oppenheimer's like, no. And Truman's all like, I know when. And Oppenheimer's like, when? Truman says, never. And so that is a terrible idea, though, because even if the Russians didn't get the spies to help them, they would still be able to build a bomb until like 1959 or 1950 something or 1960s, like sometime there. And then suddenly, just like a year or two after World War II ended and the first American A-bomb was finished, the Russians got an A-bomb that looked exactly like the American A-bomb, at least the one that they threw down. Of course, that made Truman and Stalin a bit of an enemies, and with that, lots of other things seem to start happening. Truman goes ahead, and he's all like, I do not want that sissy in my room again, because he's all like, Americans are the best, we need to protect this by building up our stockpile of nukes. What? We don't need a stockpile of nukes. Well, they are making a stockpile of nukes, so we have to protect ourselves with making our own stockpile of nukes. That is very unnecessary, Mr. President. And they keep trying to tell him that, but he doesn't listen. Just because his cabinet is all like, yes, Mr. President, and the questions are a little rigged, so that whenever they say yes, it means build more nukes. Churchill is a great war leader. I'm gonna have to say that, and he just went ahead and made everything a great victory for him. He's the one who created the morale. He's the one who created he isn't the one who created all the battle tactics, but he is the one who initiated everything. He's the one who initiated the breaking of the Enigma code. He's also the one who initiated every battle plan that was sent to him. He's the one who he's the one who told a group of people to just go ahead and destroy a heavy water plant. Also, we have still no idea why heavy water was needed for the Germans to create their nuclear weapons. And then when it came to after the war, he's out of a job, of course, because he's a great war leader, but he's a terrible peacemaker. Okay, he's good at peacemaking, but he's terrible at negotiating. And then Stalin, he's a ruthless dictator. We've all know that. He's basically the communist version of Adolf Hitler. He persecuted anyone who wasn't on his side, and he'd do anything to get the same amount of things that his compatriots are doing, even if it means lowering their standard of living, which I guess means that capitalism is better than communism in some ways, but not every way too. Socialism, maybe socialism is a maybe. And now Stalin, he just do anything, as I already told you. So he'd literally kill just to get what he wants. He literally spy to get what he wants. He literally kill his own people to get what he wants. He literally kill his food he literally sacrifices food just to get what he wants, which is a big leap. And of course, none of the people are happy. And finally, it's time for alternate history. Boom, bam, bow. Alternate history. I already just said a little bit about alternate history, but here we go. What would have happened if the Americans' Manhattan Project didn't work out? Lots of things would probably happen. The first one would be that the Americans would definitely just try again. And if that failed, then Groves would just be very, very, very angry and probably fire Oppenheimer and all the rest of the staff. Well, this would never have happened. Then the Russians would not get the information they need, so they'll have to start from scratch again, and they do not have great physicists. Well, at least not as great as the Americans and the British and the Germans. And then the Germans, of course, we already know they failed their own Manhattan Project, or their own A-bomb project, as I'm gonna call it. And with that, the biggest thing that seems to happen is that the war will be won by the Allies, but nukes will never be introduced in the world, because no one knows how to create them. Now, next alternate history I'm going to have to talk about. Is if the Germans created the nuke first. This is very unlikely, but somehow, if none of the Germans' physicists defected, and they were able to create a bomb, which place would they have nuked? Now, according to the book, there's a few of the German scientists at the end discussing each other after they found out that Hiroshima was nuked, was A-bombed, and they're all like, what happened if we did create an A-bomb? And they were all like, well, we would have nuked London, but other than that, nothing. London would have been destroyed, but we'd be totally destroyed. And then when the Japanese came in, they went to their top physicists. Also, they never put in building the A-bomb as priority number one. They were all like, "Can you build an A-bomb in the next 6 months? We could, in favorable conditions, we could outlast more than then." And then the physicists are like, even in present circumstances, 6 years wouldn't be enough. And well, we also have no uranium. And then the Japanese were like, well, is there any defense against A-bombs? Shoot down every enemy plane that comes into Japan. Which is kinda impossible because they could disguise themselves. Just shoot down every plane in Japan. Sure, that would work. But then they would have no air superiority. So, of course, the Japanese surrender after Nagasaki was A-bombed. Wow. And that's all I have from bomb. What's one thing you can learn from this? Why? Why would people start creating mass destructive weapons? And the horror that it unleashes. And be smart when you're trying to create something that could change the world in ways that you think is better, but to others can be used for worse. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Hunter and Sean. Hope to see you guys soon in another episode of Hunter and Sean. See you guys soon in another episode of Hunter and Sean. And see you then. Sean out. Peace. Wow, that's a lot of Hunter and Sean.